Welcome to Anything and Everything. I'm your host, Angelo Esposito, bringing you compelling chronicles of entrepreneurship, where success means doing anything and everything. Welcome to the Anything and Everything podcast. Today we're joined here with Victor Esposito, my father, who has over 50 years of experience as an entrepreneur and business owner. So we're going to get into things and learn how he does what he does.
57 years, Angelo, and who's counting?
57 years, there you go. All right, so maybe just to kick things off, obviously I know a lot about you, but maybe not everything. So for people who are listening, give them a little background of what you currently do.
I own a supermarket and I own some real estate. And I have 5 children, 1 wife, married to the same person over 40 years. And very happy. And live day by day like everybody.
I love it. So 5 kids in how many years?
Under 7 years, we have 5 kids.
7 years, 5 kids.
Yeah.
Wow. What's the secret to raising 5 kids?
The secret, there's no secret. You take a day at a time, and then when you get older, you sit down and you see what you did, and you said, did I do that?
Wow. And so maybe just to take a step back, why don't you tell us a bit about your history? So obviously you grew up in Montreal. Tell us where you were born, how you got here, and early years of Victor Esposito.
Well, my parents, they came here in 1950. My father came here before in 1951, I believe. 50 or 51, I don't have the exact year because I was born in 51. So then my mother came about a year and a half later. I was a year and a half old. I was 18 months. We came by boat. We landed in Halifax, and then we took the train and we came to Montreal, which I don't remember. I was only told because I was at a year and a half. You know, Angelo, it's very hard to remember.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they remember everything at a year and a half, but I'd rather say the truth and I don't remember nothing at all.
Okay, and then tell us about your early childhood. So where did you grow up? Did you go to school? Tell us a bit about your childhood.
I grew up in Park Extension. My father, when we came from, he rented a house in Park X, and we lived there for most of our life.
Mm-hmm.
We were renting at the time, and about 1960, or a bit before that, I was very young, so I don't have the exact years. He ended up buying a small duplex. It was near the Metropolitan on Outremont Street. At that time, the Metropolitan wasn't even built. It was built around 1960, I believe it was.
Wow.
And when you get to Jerry Street, it was all bushes. It was all, so then they started building. Lacazette was a golf course. I mean, I'm saying the streets. I don't know if you know them, but yeah, so that's where we grew up. And slowly, my father worked for a company. The company name was Sandvik. They make steel pieces for drills. And he worked there for 10 years. Then after, one day he decided he wanted to open a business, and he ended up finding a grocery store, and I don't know how, because I was still young, 10 years old. You don't know much what your parents, when they do transactions in business, you just find out at the kitchen table, what they tell you.
Yeah.
So I found out that he was going to leave the company and he was going to start his own business, because at that time he had 3 children and he wanted a future for his children. Not knowing that that's where I ended up for the rest of my life.
Got it. So you ended up in the grocery space. So when did you first start working in this grocery store? And tell us about that evolution.
Well, I was working when I was maybe... it's hard to believe, I know, but I was working about 12, 13 years old, going to school. Fortunately or unfortunately, the school and the stores were close. So during my lunch, I would go to the store and help. Mind you, it's not a big store. It's like the size of a dépanneur, but it had a supermarket inside.
Got
The
it.
variety was there. We had a full line of fruits and vegetables, a full line of meat, beer, delivery on the bicycle or in a station wagon. Yeah, we had a basement. We had everything there.
And for those listening wondering what is a dépanneur, that's the Quebec version of saying corner store. So
7-Eleven, let's
a
say.
7-Eleven, a corner store. Okay, and got it. So did
But
you?
not as like our store was different because today dépanneur they sell a lot of chips, beer, cigarettes, where we sold everything,
Got it.
meat and deli,
Fruits and veggies.
yeah.
Got it. Got it. So a small size grocery store. And so at what point did you decide, all right, I'm just gonna stick to this and I'm not gonna go to school? So
Well, I was doing there after school. I would go to the store during the lunch. I would go to the store. So when I would go after school, I would stay there longer because we had to wait till the store closed. And those days they closed at 6 o'clock, except for Thursday and Friday. So then I would go home, eat, and have to do my homework. So when you're that age, you don't feel like doing homework. So then when in life it's very hard to do too many jobs at the same time. So at that point, my father needed help in the store. He said, if you don't do good in school, the mentality of the older generation is like, if you don't do well in school, that's it. You come to work. Not to say, why don't you do well and what can we do to help you? They were looking more at, you help us. We need food on the table. I need employees. If I might lose the store, so I need help. So what happens? He said to me, if you're not doing good in school, you got to come to work. So at 14 years old, I stopped school.
Yeah. Oh, not bad for a guy that only went to school for 14. It seems like he did okay. Did okay with 5 kids and pretty reasonable life. So I guess maybe
I don't think it was the age. Yeah, I think it was what you have in your brains.
There you go. And so walk people through it. So you started working in that corner store.
But, excuse me.
Yeah.
For all you kids today, stay in school. Go to university. Enjoy the experience. If you can't go to university, go to university. Enjoy the experience, because when you get older, you have something to talk about. You make different friends. Maybe not a lot of them, but you have a couple that you have for life.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, the way I see it, I mean, I have a similar take, but slightly different. When it comes to university, I think, obviously, if you're doing it for a profession, it makes sense. So if you're, studying to be a doctor, a lawyer, etc. For most other things, it doesn't make a ton of sense. So I would definitely not recommend getting in debt for that, especially in the U.S. where it's crazy. But in terms of the experience, assuming you don't have to get into a crazy amount of debt, you will make friends and you'll have a good time. And it's a period of your life where you can experience that. So that's probably the positive side if you're not going into profession. But apart from that, a lot of people are probably better off like just going straight into a trade or a career.
I understand that sometimes people, especially in the States, that they leave university and they leave with a $200,000 debt.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
That's not the best way to go either.
There you go. That's what I'm saying.
But hopefully you made the right choice and the right career choice, that the debt will be paid within a few years.
Hopefully.
And that experience will carry you over.
Hopefully.
It's like buying a house. You're paying at the beginning, but after 25 years, the house, you don't have to pay no more. At the beginning, it was very tough to pay it. But if you didn't start somewhere, the same with school. You have to go, you get a good education, and that'll lead you to any other field, and maybe you'll change field for whatever reason, or you'll meet people to give you better ideas or mentor you or whatever the reason is, and you could even move, ahead much faster in life.
Yeah, I agree historically. I think things have changed. So like I said, in my opinion, again, we could agree to disagree. My opinion is unless you're doing a profession, I think a lot of education let me rephrase. I think a lot of education can be done on your own, online, mentorship, you name it, books, YouTube, online courses, whatever it may be. So unless you need it for a degree like a doctor or a lawyer or something like that, chances are it's going to be a waste of money. So unless it's not an exorbitant amount of money, then it makes sense for the college experience you can have when you're young. But anyways, having said that, let's jump into it. So I'd love to hear kind of
Angelo, just to finish that conversation.
Tell me.
Online is never the same as you meet with people, interact with people. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed.
I mean,
If the debt is, I agree.
You're
If
by
the,
yourself.
yeah, I agree. If the debt is not there, meaning you don't have to incur 80,000, 120,000, something like that, and whether it's public or free or you know, pretty affordable, there's an argument to be made about the experience of being around people, meeting people, hanging out, just kind of that college or, you know, late teenager, early 20 experience. But aside from that, just from a pure educational standpoint, I just am a big believer, unless you have to, because it's a specific skill, like a lawyer or a doctor or something like that, you can probably do more damage on your own.
Yeah, but I'm sure that you got a lot of this experience later on in life.
Yeah.
So at 20, 21, 19, it's very hard to get that experience.
Yeah.
So you have to go through it. When you finish university, then you realize if it was for you or if it wasn't for you, if it was a waste of money or if it was not a waste of money.
Yeah. All right. So let's take a step back. So basically, you stopped school at 14, started working full time. How did it go from that to then, you know, 10
More
plus
stores?
grocery stores, and then, you know, where you are today? But maybe walk us through that journey.
Well, I need a couple of days, but we'll make it short. We'll skip some areas and we'll make it shorter. I was always interested. It was in my blood, I guess, because my parents in Italy, they did a bit of retail. And my uncle did some retail also. So not a supermarket, but different. And I guess it was in my blood, I guess, the blood of the family. And so I saw that I enjoyed fixing the grocery, fixing the stock, filling the shelves, serving people at the cashes. You know, at 14 years old, it's very difficult to get respect from other older people because you think you're only a little kid, which I was. But my math is very good, still is up to this day.
Is it 72 plus 18?
I'll stop that, 90.
There
But
97 minus 15.
no. 82, stop it. But you know, so like I was saying, it's very hard to get respect from older people when you're a young boy. But with time, I got it because they see when I was serving them at the cash register, there was no mistakes. They would take the bill, they would look at it, turn it upside down, try to find a mistake, but they wouldn't find a mistake.
There you go. Because back then, I mean, just for people listening, back then, right, it wasn't a calculator. It was in your head, mental math, and
well, not just mental math.
And it was all cash too, right? So
yeah, the cash register were not the same either, and pricing the items, each item were priced. Not like today that you scan the product with the code and you don't have to worry about the price. It's different. It's different.
Right. So how did it evolve from that? You know, you're doing that, you're gaining some experience, you're getting that respect of elderly people, let's say, and at a certain point,
a few years down the road, we had a friend of the family who was working for IGA, which was owned by Loeb at that time in Ontario, in Ottawa. And he said to my father one day, he says, you know, IGA, they give stores for very low prices. And they weren't big stores. They were about 7,000 feet. In those days, those were big stores. Today, it's like IGA Extras, 60,000 feet. Now there's 7 to 10,000 foot stores are depreneur sizes, and it's all changed.
Wow.
But that's another story. So he mentioned, and so I was always telling him, you know, we should do something. We can't always be in this little store for the rest of our lives. I mean, if it was for my father, I guess we'd still be there. But so he decided to go see those people in Ottawa to see the store. And he liked what he saw at that time, and he liked what he heard. So we ended up selling our small store to a family relatives, to two of my uncles. And we went to Ottawa for about 2 years. Then my father didn't like certain things, so he wanted to give the store back to Loeb IGA. So we stayed 2 years. We lived outside of Ottawa, a place we call Manotick, Ontario, which is like You have to go over a small bridge to get there. So it's a little island, which today is very, very expensive. The houses are very, very expensive there. And we came back to Montreal and we had to start all over again. So we had a bit of experience of a bigger store now, but not that big. And there was Steinberg's was closing stores and giving them away, in a sense, for a very, very low price.
Right.
And we met an agent, a real estate agent, and back and forth. And we ended up buying the first big store on St. Louis Street in Ville Saint Laurent. It was 10,000 feet, or 12,000, I believe it was, in an area there where we didn't know that area that well in Saint Laurent. So we had a lot of
Trial and error.
And we did enough trial and error that we didn't have to go bankrupt because we didn't take salaries for a year or two. We were living at home. Okay, there was me and there was my brother, Johnny was involved. And we worked hard there, and then we finally were successful. Then we ended up buying another store in Dollard des Ormeaux. Then we bought another store in Westminster, which was a Dominion store, which was a smaller one than the St. Louis store. Then we bought one on Marcel Lorraine, was very, very close from St. Louis. But because the building was for sale, we ended up buying the building also after. Which was and since the stores were so close, we had to call it Esposito Farm. Well, we had to use another name because we don't have two Esposito supermarkets, one beside each other. So we had to try to find a name, and we used the name Esposito Farms. So we were one of the first to have that type of store. It was a big meat counter, was serving the customer, a big fruit department, fresh bakery, more like bread and things like that. Deli counter, very big, and very limited grocery. Very, very limited. And it was going okay, but not that good. So we decided to open on Sundays. So we opened on Sundays. The first few Sundays wasn't that busy. Then all of a sudden it came so busy because everybody was closed on Sunday. The word started getting around, and we were one of the busiest. Well, we were about the only one open. So, all the big chains were not open.
So back then, all the other grocery stores were closed on Sundays. That was a normal thing.
Yeah. Well, even the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we closed at 6.
Oh, wow.
Thursday, Friday, 9. Saturday, Sundays, 5 or 6.
Welcome back to the Anything and Everything podcast. We're here today with Victor Esposito, 57 years in the business, expert when it comes to grocery stores and real estate. So Victor, let's just get back into it. So
Just to correct you, Angelo, I'm not an expert. I just learned a lot of things, and I'm just passing my knowledge on to the listeners.
There you go. Okay, so he's passing his knowledge on after 57 years of experience. I would consider that an expert, but I like that humble approach. So 14 years old, stop school, start working full-time in the grocery store. Expansion starts happening. At the peak of it, Esposito supermarkets, at the peak, how many grocery stores did you guys have?
We had, I believe it was 9.
9. Okay, interesting. And those 9 all around the Montreal area?
Yes. Well, we opened one in Chambly. We opened one in St. Lambert, one in Laval, one in the West Island, 2 in Saint Laurent, one in Montreal, one in Montreal West, and one in Saint Michel, Montreal.
There you go.
And just brought back a memory. When we were closed on Sundays, what we did after is we took our store in Saint Michel and divided into small boutiques.
Elaborate. What do you mean?
Well, we had the deli by itself, so you walk in, we made a hallway, and you go to the deli and you pay. So when you have under 5 employees, you're allowed to stay open.
Smart.
We sort of went around the law a bit. Well, we followed the rules.
Yeah. We found a loophole.
Yeah, so with that store, then we ended up changing it, you know.
Like, makes sense. And so what was it like when you had 9 stores? At that point, did you have a head office as well?
Yeah, we always had a head office after 2 stores.
Okay. And so what was it like managing 9 stores? I'd love to hear some of the lessons kind of learned going from 1 to 2 to 9, and what are some pain points you guys hit and some lessons learned?
When we started in my father started in 1960 and I started in 1965, we had employee problems, labor. And in 2023, we still have labor problems. So
Is it worse or the same?
It's the same. It's the same.
Yeah.
People don't want to work, you know, and they work, then they're never happy between employees. They do more than the other one. They're making less than the other one, you know. So it's like every business. Certain departments make more than other departments. You know what I mean? So if you go in the hospital, the doctor makes more than the nurse. But the nurse could say, I helped the doctor just as much. I was involved, so I should get the same pay. So, you know, like butchers get more than grocery clerks, but that's how it is.
Right.
Like a chef gets more than a waiter or waitress.
Right.
So, you know, that's how it is.
Right.
It's not something I invented.
Yeah. Okay, so labor was always as difficult. What else were some pains, you know, growing pains, going from 1 or 2 to 9 stores? So staffing sounds like an obvious and big one.
I mean, the biggest mistake I believe I made and we made as a company is that the employees, we had to get better employees. We had to pay a bit more, I guess. But because we were in the stores sometimes and overlooking them, we thought that we would maybe get, and the profit margin are very low.
What is for people who don't know, what are profit margins in a typical grocery store?
You can make clear about 1 or 2% of the sales.
Wow, small.
But sometimes if the sales are not there, you could lose too.
So let's say 2%. So just quick math, if you're doing $1 million in sales a year at a grocery store, you walk away.
You can't do $1 million because
it's not enough. So a small grocery store is what, $10 million in sales?
If you do 10 million, you could make yourself 200,000 profit, depending your salary you take. If you take a big salary and you expense a lot of expenses, then you have no profit at the end of the year, but you have a better life.
Right.
Or you could lose your shirt too. There are people that have lost money in the stores.
Right.
You know. Sometimes they lose because they take too much out, and sometimes they lose because they don't renovate their stores a bit. Or you see all the big chains every 10 or so many years, they renovate their stores.
Yeah. I think on what I always think about grocery stores is it's a tough business, but could be a good one as you showed. But you know, razor thin margins. Talking about, you know, penny business, open 7 days a week, typically 12 hours a day, right? Like, or more, 9 a.m., 9 p.m. kind of thing. Not really closed for any holidays except for maybe the ones that, you know, the government forces you to close. So maybe 2-3 days a year, I think, that you're closed.
About 7.
7 days a year. So let's call it 360 days or 358 days a year open, 7 days a week, 12-hour days, lots of SKUs. That's another thing I don't like, is even if you're a small grocery store, you have thousands of SKUs, which means lots of suppliers, lots of distributors to work with, lots of accounts payable to deal with. So a lot of admin work, a lot of management. But I think the flip side of that is because there's such a high barrier, it's hard, it's capital intensive, it's a penny business, it's open 7 days, you know, et cetera, et cetera. If you could break into it like you did, there is a future. It's just a very high barrier to entry.
Well, I think today it's easier if you have some money.
That's the thing that you need. Like, I think if an average person wants to open a grocery store, isn't it quite a hefty investment?
Well, if they give you, depends how you open it. There's many types. If you open a small store, if you open a store where you have a franchise where you're sort of the owner, but you're sort of the...
Okay, let's go through both as a quick example. Let's say you open a small store. I mean, I'm assuming you need at least $500,000.
Yeah, but you sort of borrow it, no?
Okay.
You give a certain amount down and you borrow the rest.
And then let's say the franchise.
The secret or the problem is that you need the sales after for the first year. And generally when you open a new store, the first 2 years, the sales are very low. So then you need a bit of money to back you up to cover all your expenses that you cannot make off the profit of your sales.
Right.
And if you don't have that to back you up, then you start cutting in your store the variety, you start cutting the quantity, the shelves start looking empty, and then the people that were going to come, they don't come. So if you don't have money, it's not just what you start with, you need money to back you up. You know, it's like owning an apartment building. As long as the apartment's full, they pay the rent, you make your mortgage. But if it's half empty, where you get the money?
True.
So you have to go in your bank account, but then you get better times year after and you rent it again and then you continue. But you need backup monies. People don't realize that. They figure they have $100,000 in their bank account. Let me open a business. I want to be an entrepreneur.
No, but
and you read many times that they say, the people say, "Oh, I didn't know it was so hard." What do you think? If it was so easy, everybody would do it.
Of course, yeah. No, but I think you just proved my point. My point that it's I don't think it's a negative thing. I think it's a good thing for you and for other people in the industry, but it's a very, very high barrier to entry. So I'm sure there's ways, but like you said, you need a lot of money saved up. You need that cushion money for the first few years. You're open 350 days a year or more, 7 days a week, 12-hour days, thousands of distributors, tens of thousands of SKUs. Like the list goes on. And you have so many different departments that it's not just hiring employees, it's hiring meat or butchers, right? Meat employees, deli employees, fruits, people that are fruits. You need good cashiers, right? So I think it's a very complex business. Positive side, it's always in need. It's recession proof. It's, there's a lot of good things about it. But to your point, I think that's awesome. It's good because it's super hard to get into, right? There's a lot of businesses that you can start with a lot less capital and a lot less, I guess, risk as well. But so what are some other lessons? Let's go back quick. So staffing obviously is a big one, especially with 9 stores. I heard, a good lesson, like you mentioned, is probably hiring a bit better. So paying a bit more, but maybe you get, you pay, let's say 20% more, 30% more, but you get double the productivity. So there's probably some win there. What other lessons did you learn?
Sometimes it works like that. Sometimes it doesn't work because sometimes the person says he's good and you try him out. As soon as he works for another store, you figure the guy is good. But sometimes in the other store, the guy is only good because he has a good team around him.
Right.
We hired someone from a big chain store, and without mentioning names or anything of the chain or the person's name, this was many, many years ago. And the guy, he didn't. We paid him big bucks, but he didn't pan out. Why? Because he says, well, I used to have like 5 people work for me. I would tell them, go do this. I need information on this. And they will go get the information. Where when we have only 9 stores, he has to go get the information.
Yeah.
And he wasn't capable, It's like I say sometimes to friends or people when we're talking, you could be a good hockey player, but you could be a lousy coach.
Yeah.
So, you could be good for a big company, but when you go into a smaller company, it's a different strategy.
Yeah, I agree.
If you don't have that experience behind you, you won't last.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We have the same thing at Whisk. I mean, it's the same thing in any business, but sometimes you hire, especially in the early days, I'll give you a parallel. At Whisk software company, marketing, sales, we have different roles. Sometimes you hire someone, like you said, they're too high level, they're great, but maybe they did this awesome campaign at this massive company, but they forgot to mention
$5 million campaign.
the budget. They had designers. They had people that would do the Facebook ads. They had they had 5 teams underneath them. Which again, there's a part where you do need that person when you're a certain scale. In the beginning, I find it's tough because in the beginning you want to find those what I call soldiers, the people that are just doers. Eventually, you need the people that are more than just doers, but can kind of grow and see the vision and build. The perfect world is when you can find someone who was a builder, has that experience, but is kind of bored at a big company and they want to get back in the weeds for a bit and they're willing to build that team again. For me, those are the golden nuggets. You find that person who's kind of done it, but they got bored and they come back.
They're only temporarily.
Yeah, they're temporary because they're going to rebuild the team in your company kind of thing.
Again.
Maybe, but if there's nothing wrong with that, right? If they can build a team and a process, that stays with the company. So for me, that's still a win. Of course. But okay, got it. So 9 stores.
Enough about Whisk.
Yeah. So enough about Whisk. Back to Esposito. So 9 stores, and obviously at one point it's now not Esposito. So let's continue that story. 9 stores, learning a lot of lessons. I guess regular day-to-day blocking and tackling. What happens?
Well, not just regular day-to-day. You realize, people don't realize, but there's a lot of government papers also involved in this. You know, like if you don't have the right accountant helping you, the government loads you with papers and rules and regulations. And if it's not the government, it's the city. If it's not the city, it's the municipality. Like it never stops either, you know.
And when you say like
And
loads, you
then,
what kind of stuff? Taxes or like
well, forms
like,
to fill, more forms to fill,
but what, like zoning stuff, street stuff, like what kind of stuff? Or just everything and anything?
everything and anything.
Or I should say anything and everything.
You know,
That's the name of the podcast.
they come out with new rules. They come out, they need more money, you know. So you need a permit because you make sandwiches in your store now. You can sell the bread and the deli separate, is not a problem. As soon as you start making sandwiches, you need a permit, and you have to pay for the permit. If you put a hot machine, if you make hot chickens, you have to pay for a permit. If you have an elevator, you have to pay for an elevator permit each year. You know what I mean? So they're all little things, but they add up when you're a small local store.
Got it.
You know, so imagine. So, you know, there's always, so, you know, you're dealing with that. And then you deal with, how can I say it? You have customers sometimes are not happy for whatever reason. You know, during the COVID, it wasn't fun. And not at all, because we couldn't get merchandise from companies because they had no stock. When you got it, whatever price they told you, we had to pay it. Then when you try to sell it to the clients, they get mad at the store because they say they're too expensive. The employees had to get paid more. We had to pay for all the masks and the soap and all what goes with it. We didn't put it in our prices.
Right.
So, you know what I mean? They say the chain stores made a lot of money, but I don't know, maybe they made it differently, but I don't know how they made a lot of money. Maybe the head office made the money, but I don't know about the stores.
Yeah, well, I think what people see from the outside is that, you know, with restaurants being closed and people not going out and curfews and all these things imposed, one of the few industries that was not affected. Jeez, damn it. I think with, you know, restaurants being closed and other things being closed, one of the few industries that was not affected was groceries. So I think people just saw that grocery stores were making more money. I think that what people mean is revenue. But I agree with you. Bottom line, who knows? I'm sure, I mean, I would assume too that they probably did, but you're right. If expenses went up, supplier costs went up, all these other things went up, maybe the margins were similar. But from an outside perspective, you see grocery stores being like super busy during that time, you know? But tell me about the height. So, you know, it sounds like great story. You started off young. You start building, you know, you're working with your dad and maybe one of your brothers. You started building this thing, 1 store, 2 stores. You're all the way to 9 stores, learning lessons. What happens? Is it all roses and rainbows, or is there a collapse? When does this collapse happen?
They say in business, every 7 years you get a bad year.
There you go. So what happens next, right?
If I've been in business 57 years, I had a few bad years. I had a few 7 years in between, eh?
Yeah. So tell me. So what happens next? I remember there was a period. I was still young, to be honest. So I don't remember. Mom reminded me of it a couple of years back. We're like, remember when your father went through those tough years?
Yeah,
I don't remember because I was young.
We made some bad choices. That's all. I mean, you know, like everybody, you make, you know.
Yeah, but share. It's good for our listeners to hear mistakes because I think a lot of entrepreneurs can relate.
The choice you need is you need a good employee. You need a good finance person to guide you. You know, our philosophy was, you know, go pay up front and then open the store and then get the finance later. It doesn't work like that. You have to work with other people's money, a certain amount of yours, not all yours, and that's the issue. So that was one big mistake, you know, we made.
Right.
And
I think that's also a bit of that old school Italian mentality where back in the day everything was like cash, painful, no debt.
Yeah, and the other mistake, you know, that there were too many chiefs to make a decision.
Too many chefs in the kitchen.
Yeah, so, you know, I mean, not in a bad way, you know. Somebody had to take charge, and it's, you know, it's unfortunate that when you have somebody older and he wants to always be right, you know, I mean, I'm getting old too, and I don't want to be that type of person, you know. I want to understand, like, I'm working with my children now, and I want them to understand, you know, they can't always be wrong, but they can't always be right either. And as I get older, not that I didn't realize it before, but you have to sometimes make a few mistakes along the way.
Yeah.
But not big ones.
Not costly ones, yeah.
I mean, we could have done like a lot of company. We could have went bankrupt, and rebought everything back at a quarter of the price it started off. But we didn't want to, so we sold some properties and we went through our tough times.
Right. And so tough times for you, what did that entail? So you're at these 9 stores, or potentially more, but 9 that you remember. What does it look back in terms of tough times, and what do you readjust to? How many stores do you have at this point?
Well, I don't know the exact years, but...
No, just rough story, right? Like just kind of, for a guest listening, it's kind of just following the story. Started off young, one little corner store, goes all the way to 9 eventually. What happens next? From memory, I know there was a bit of a downfall and then a bit of a rebound. So, downfall. So what happens next? You have 9 stores.
Our sales in our store didn't have the volume because we weren't like a big chain store that we could put all that money in advertising. We couldn't make our stores as nice as the chain stores and put in $5 million each store, So sometimes we get a store from a chain and we just refix it a bit. But we didn't get like what they would do, They put in $5 million, we couldn't. $5 million a store, we weren't in the same situation.
Right.
We had ideas, but we didn't have the financing behind
Right.
us.
So eventually,
before,
what happens? You start cutting down these stores. You had to sell these stores. Were they leased? What happened?
Well, each store was different. Each location was different.
And what did you go down to? No, but just high level. You went down and you went down to what? 4 stores?
Yeah, about 5 stores.
Okay, so at this point you're down to 4 stores. Are you getting back in the game now? And you're like things, the finances are getting back in order. You cut off these stores, cut off the losses. You know what I mean? Cut off the dead weight at this point. Is it rebound time? Now you're at 5 stores, or what happens next?
Yeah, we rebounded a bit, but then at one point in 2015, I had to make a decision because my children, they were all finished university and they wanted to make careers, and some of them liked the grocery business. So I had to make a decision: do I work for my children or do I work for my family? So I made the decision that I wanted to work for my children, or with my children, the ones that wanted to work with me. And it didn't go well with my father. And all hell broke loose. And then, so I went on my own, and I've been on my own since 2015 with my kids. And, we have some good years and bad years, tough days and soft days. But like I said before, with the virus and all this, they were thrown into the fire too. They had the same issues that I was talking about before.
Yeah.
And they were running the stores. I was helping, but as you get older, you have the same will, but you don't have the same strength, unfortunately. So I mean, the will, I have it, but the strength I don't.
And so when you got out, you stepped away from Esposito. What's the new store called?
Well, we had to come up with a name, and we did some family brainstorming, because you're, 7, 8 years ago?
Mm-hmm.
So, my youngest was 19 and my oldest was 26 about. So everybody was old enough to understand where we were going this time.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, they came out with a name. We all agreed, the majority, and it's called Marché Nouveau, NUVO. And we tried it, and we've been pretty successful.
Yeah. And Nouveau's like when that said,
it's
spelled
like a regular supermarket.
Yes, spelled N-U-V-O, and for those who don't know, in French, nouveau, not spelled like that, but nouveau means new. So the idea, I think, overall, and the consensus from the family was to start off new start, a new store, a new concept. And I think today you have 2 right now, right? 2 Marché Nouveaux or Nouveau markets.
Yeah. Well, the second one we opened was a bit smaller, so we called it Nouveau Express.
Because
it has a Starbucks inside. It has a lot of ready-to-eat foods.
Okay, and that one's more like downtown, let's say?
It is downtown.
It is downtown, got it. Okay, got it. And so what does the future hold now? So, for people listening, you kind of this trajectory, and obviously we compressed it because it's 57 years of experience, but long story short, you're now working with your kids, my siblings, and then you guys have 2 stores. What's next for Nouveau?
Well, listen, what I want to do, what I should do, and what I think is right are all different things. But the most important thing is not what I want to do, because like I tell my children in the business, I'm not the future. So when they sit down and they decide which way they want to go, then we'll see if it's feasible.
Okay, that's fair.
But to say, you know, I want to do this, I want to have so many stores, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice, I've been there, but I mean, it doesn't mean anything. I'd rather have one store and make a decent living than have 5 stores and lose your shirt.
Right. And so I guess that makes sense. You'll let the ones in the business kind of decide and maybe give them some guidance. But
You
like,
know,
what would be your vision?
You know, I'm not from the old school. I'm not from, you know, oh, I started a business, I know what I'm doing. You know, items I sold 57 years ago or 50 years ago or 40 years ago don't exist no more on the shelf.
Yeah.
Packaging they did don't exist the same packaging. Things change.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So they have to adapt to it, not me. Now it's all internet, computers. In my days, it was just a small cash register with a pricer, and you know.
Yeah. Things change. So what I'm hearing is that they'll decide, but maybe you can give them some guidance. But just, you know, since we're the ones talking, what's your vision? You know, I get it. In real life, you let them decide, but where would you personally, if you were younger, I would love to see Nouveau go?
Oh, if I was younger, then you're talking another ball.
No, but just where Nouveau is now, where would you like to see it go just yourself? Off the record, right? Like we're talking here,
No.
your vision. They're going to make their vision come true, but where would you?
If I was younger, I would open some specialty stores.
Specialty in what sense?
Like big fruit stores, just fruits, and a few little odd, like the store similar that I opened in 1980s when we called the Esposito Farm. Not 100% like that, but something in that idea. Or maybe a big liquidation store.
And you don't want to have many or kind of
Well, the problem today is you don't find locations.
real estate.
You know, and you don't find land. And you know, I wouldn't like to open like, you know, stores off the island of Montreal, because then you spend half your time traveling.
Right.
You know, if I have to go to Saint Lambert, to Longueuil, or to Hudson, or to Saint Lazare, you know, it's half an hour, 40 minutes each way.
Yeah.
That's depending on the traffic. So you always spend 2 hours a day in the car.
Yeah. And so, you know, I think overall you'd probably agree you've had a pretty successful life. But aside from the stores, and I guess, you know, with some of the money saved up, and had the opportunity and the foresight to invest in some real estate, but, you know, maybe the business side aside, what are some other things that when you look back on you're proud of?
Well, what I'm proud of, first thing, I mean, everybody tries to accomplish, you know, first thing I'm proud is that, you know, I found a good wife. And I have 5 nice children. Sometimes they're a pain, but they all have a head on their shoulder. They're all good workers. They all have a good heart. They all care. They're all pretty honest. They don't tell me everything. I find out later in stories. But like the Irish Embassy for me was like some kind of Irish embassy, and then I found out it was a pub. But things like that. But listen, it's part of growing up, and they made mistakes, and lucky they didn't continue the mistakes. They realized, and by talking to them all the time, I hope it helped. And I mean, I think I'm proud of that. The rest, you know, in life, it's all, you know, I mean, the first thing we need is our health. Once we have our health, I mean, we had it till we were a certain age, and now we have a few bumps along the road like a lot of people, but thank God up to now they've been pushed aside, and hopefully they don't come back. But you know, but I mean, listen, I mean, if you have that, I mean, the rest is all extra. You know, like I told you guys when you were young, you got to learn how to swim, good education, and speak a bit of Italian. You know, 3 of my 5 kids speak Italian. The other 2 don't, because they always talked English between themselves. When I used to put signs around the house, they would laugh at me. And now my 2 youngest, they don't speak Italian. They tell me, "Dad, why didn't you push me?" You wouldn't believe how much I pushed them to go to Italian school. But anyways, we'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
yeah, so I mean, I think that's important. I mean, what else is, what's left in life if you don't have a good family?
I like
You
that.
know, you're miserable all the time, and then you take it out on other people. And the other thing I must say that, I only have a few friends, but I what is the word? I surrounded myself with some good people, as friends, because I mean, they're good, honest people. They're not alcoholics. There's nothing wrong with alcoholics, but it's not the way to go.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Drink
Good.
moderately, but they seem like good family people. So and hopefully you guys find the same thing, that you find yourselves with good, surrounded with good friends. Because good friends, your children will grow up good too, and whoever's going to have children and how many as they want. I don't push anybody to have because I had 5, you have to have X, or listen. When they're ready, when they want whatever, God bless them, and that's the end.
Right.
I'm not the guy I'm not that parent. You have to marry this type of person. You have to have this. You have to live in this type of area. You have to have so many kids. I mean, it's not up to me. I'm not going to raise them.
So to recap for our listeners, health. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything. 2, partner in crime. Find a solid partner in crime. 3, family first. And 4, surround yourself, aside from family, with surround yourself with people who are going to make you a better man, a better person, people that are honest, hardworking, and that can help you, and you can help them.
One thing I just thought of it. I forgot to tell you.
Please do.
Which I just forgot.
Those are the 4 things to remember.
Yeah, which one were they?
I said health, number 1, because if you don't have health, you can't help yourself.
Oh yeah,
or other
excuse me.
people.
Okay, I found out.
Tell me.
Remember one thing when you find the woman of your dreams, is that when you find the woman of your dreams, you cannot always be right, and she can always be wrong. In a good marriage, you have to give and take. If you want to last, if you want to be the boss of the house. In my house, we don't have a boss. We work together. Whatever we need, we try to work it out. Not that I come home and say, I'm the boss. Or I bring the money home and I'm no, not at all. We work together. I mean, what is the thing that you're a boss? What does it mean more? What does it carry? What kind of weight does that carry? It only carries anger, And if your wife sometimes wants a certain item, you can't always say, no, 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 no. And that is something I also preach to my kids. I used to tell my children, I mean, I'm only saying this because maybe, one day somebody will see this and they'll realize and reflect on it. I'm not saying what I say is right. I worked for me. Will it work for other people? I don't know. Depends your character also. Okay? So what I was saying is that, you can't always be right. You can't always be wrong. I used to tell my kids the same thing. I used to tell them, I know what time you came last night, but some nights I wouldn't say nothing, because you can't always be on their backs, because what will they do after? If you're going to be on your children's back 24/7, as soon as they turn 18 and 1 hour, they're out of the house. They're going to move, because mind you, they'll be making a big mistake, but they don't realize that because they're only 18 years old. So, and that's what I say. So you realize that, I know you came in a certain hour. I know what you did. I know where you went, but I'll let it go tonight and I won't say nothing. But when I have to tell them, I would tell them.
Right.
And the same with the marriage, you know what I mean? Sometimes instead of making a big argument, we'll just walk away from it. Okay, it's your way. Okay, we're both right and we're both wrong. So,
well, what's your saying, right? It's happy.
Happy wife, happy life.
Yeah, I have a spin on that. I like my dad's saying, but I have a spin on it. Mine is happy life, happy wife, happy life.